everyone, it's Romania Black, and we are on the final set of rounds for this year's Top Husbando and Top Waifu of 2023. This has been such a journey. I started this last year just for fun because it was March Madness. It seemed like it'd be a great idea, and Patreon seemed to think it was like a fun, cool thing to do to nominate their favorite husbandos and waifus based on the shows that I've seen so far. And last year was a lot of fun, but this year was so hard because I've watched like twice the amount of shows with twice the amount of husbando and waifus. There were so many nominations, and so it was really exciting to narrow them down and to form this bracket and then talk about them with y'all and about why we love them and why they make great husbandos or waifus. So, and the criteria, adding that as a kind of tiebreaker of sorts, has been really, really exciting as well. So I thought that that was a lot of fun. And so it's been a journey, but I thought that once we got down to this point, we would have settled down to our final picks and it would have been easy peasy. Nope. But y'all saw that coming, right? I was going to get wine, but it just didn't feel right. So I felt like a rum and Coke was a much better option, right? A much better option to go out with. Still classy enough, but keeping it fun, right? So yeah, we are down to our Elite 8 husbandos and Elite 8 waifus. And in this video, we're going to be doing our Elite 8 round, our Final 4, and the finals. I was going to split this video up, and then I was like, no, let's just do one whole round and get the whole thing over with. So that's what we're doing. So we have 3 sets of criteria, 3 rounds. And by the end of this, we're going to be crowning our chief king husbando and queen waifu of 2023 that will join the Hall of Fame alongside Hak and Yona from last year. Now, the ones that win this year will not be eligible for next year's competition. So I think I've decided that if I want to, I'm going to keep doing this as long as I can. So for right now, we're going to do like a 5-year rotation. So Hak and Yona are out next year, and then the winners of this will be out, right? And you would think that'll make things easier, but as you've seen this year, it's been tough, and next year we'll have even more nominations, hopefully, and even more new characters being nominated, so it'll be even more difficult. So yeah, who are our final 8 husbandos? Our final 8 husbandos, we've managed to have 3 1 seeds that have made it to the Elite 8. Reagan Arataka, Hua Chong, Lam Wanji. We have a 3rd seed, Ash Lynx, a 6th seed, Salamura Ajun, an 8th seed, Roy Mustang, and a 14th seed, Dark Horse, Jeha, making it to the rounds. And then for the waifus, we only have 2 1 seeds that have made it to the Elite 8. Riza Hawkeye and Misato from Neon Genesis. As far as other seeds, we have 2 3 seeds, Nobara and Ray. We have a 5th seed, the Windmaster from Heaven Official's Blessing. And we have 2 11 seeds, Nina Fortner as well as Yoruichi. So a wide spread of waifus and a wide spread of husbandos. So first of all, let me really quick thank Patreon because you guys nominated these husbando and waifus. You've helped me narrow them down through the polls, and you've shown so much support for this bracket and how much fun it's been to do it and talk about it. And if y'all didn't think it was as much fun as you do, I probably wouldn't do it. So special thanks to Patreon as well as our philanthropy tier. These individuals are credited for our philanthropy tier this month, and so please give them a special shout out. We have Edgar, we have Dana, we have Tyrone, we have Larry Manning, we have Truck, we have Anime Anning, we have Shimoyama, we have Arjo, we have Be Happy, as well as Translucent Men. So thank you guys so much. All of my love. I deeply, deeply appreciate all the support. And for y'all enjoying this. This has been a lot of fun, and I managed to get it done on time this year. Last year, I waited till February to start recording, and I didn't get it done until June. So I feel much more accomplished this year, knowing that we got it all done during March. So progress. Maybe next year, I'll get it done in even more advanced time. But so our Elite 8 round, I took 3 criteria. Obviously, in every single round from here on in, aesthetically pleasing is a must, and every character will meet that. So our 3 criteria for the Elite 8 is actually a surprisingly difficult round of criteria because almost all of our individuals kind of meet this criteria. And so once I started getting the nitty gritty, I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be hard. So our criteria for the Elite 8 round is to be caring and understanding of their partner and for their partner, a willingness to help others, and being respectful. And that's going to get real hard, right? Real hard. So, Woo! This round's going to get tough, y'all. I'm just going to warn you. And there are going to be some surprises along the way. But you know what? It's our bracket. It's our rules. We can make them, right? So, cheers, y'all, to the Elite 8. This is round 1 of our final video. It's like Attack on Titan Season 4, Part 3, Round 1. That's where we're at with this. So, first we have Reagan Arataka versus Jeha. This one's really difficult. Very difficult. It's very, very difficult because you have your caring for your partner and understanding. Well, neither of them are in canonical relationships. I mean, they are in lots of fan subtext relationships. So you have that, right? Which is very difficult. We'll just use, for an example, Reagan Arataka with Serizawa, as well as Jeha, we'll say with Kija. And for the record, I know I've noted this early on in the video, but spoilers are abound from here on in. There's going to be spoilers with every series. So if you haven't watched these series, just skip around, right? But so in terms of caring for their partner and understanding, Reagan and Jeha kind of go at it from the same vein, oddly enough, because even though neither of them are outright about their romantic care of someone, like Jeha will be very quick to admit that they care about Yona, they care about Hak, and Reagan will be very quick to say that they care about Mob. Those are great, but those I wouldn't consider romantic relationships with those characters. I know some people do. Some people ship it hardcore, and to that I say I don't judge you. So you are welcome to ship that, obviously. But they're very open with those types of relationships and caring. But in terms of like a sensual romantic partner, they're a little bit more shy. Like there's lots of back and forth flirting between Kija and Jeha in the manga and in the anime a bit, but they're never really forthright about it, and they're not open being like, I love you. They don't actually say that. And so they're kind of like a little bit like flirty, but also kind of distant because they don't want to, be too awkward or anything. And the same thing for Reagan. Reagan's like that with Serizawa. He's not really, and granted, as I'm recording this, I am only up to episode 6 of season 3. So just note, I am up to date with the manga on Yona the Dawn. I am not up to date with the anime on Mob Psycho. And so, if something happens between now and the end of the series that will have Serizawa and Reagan develop some kind of bond that I don't know about, I'm sorry. But maybe if that's the case, then that could be something to note for next year, because I don't know that. But as of right now, as of episode 6, Reagan has shown in the OVA that he cares about Serizawa. When he was freaking out, he was glad Serizawa got out. But we've not really seen too many prime examples of Reagan like outright caring for Serizawa, and the same goes for Jeha. So they're actually on even footing with that category, right? They're actually on even footing in my terms. Again, next year if Reagan's back on the pole, might be a totally different story. But as far as being willing to help others, they're kind of the same on this as well, which is insane, right? They're kind of the same. So it's like you have Jeha, who is willing to help others, kind of when it's on his own terms and beneficial to him. But then you also have Reagan, who's the same way. He's a con man, so he kind of only helps others at first when it's beneficial to him. But they both have exceptions. Like Jeha has the exception with Yona and the Dragons. Reagan has the exception with Mob. So you have a character and a set of characters that both are willing to help others, kind of if it's on their own terms or if it's directly benefiting the person they care most about. So it's like, ugh. So then it comes down to being respectful. And damn it, they're both kind of the same. Reagan can be respectful and be polite and forthright, again, if it's benefiting him. Jeha's the same way. It's just like, it depends on the person and it depends on the circumstance, whether they're respectful or they help or they care about them. So you have two characters that, given the examples we have, and I have lots of examples with Jeha, lots with Reagan, it's really difficult to choose. So I was kind of at a loss. Like I spent days kind of just thinking about this and being like, well, what about this example? What about this example? And it was just like apples and oranges. And so I decided to use the philanthropy tier and ask them what they thought. And they nominated 75% of those that answered the poll in the philanthropy tier said that Jeha was the better person for those categories, and 25% said Reagan. So here's what we're gonna do. Jeha is going to win this category based on that tiebreaker against all odds, a 14 seed dark horse coming in to take out Reagan's sweep of all things. But before you all riot, before you take your full wine bottles and throw them at me from afar, I am going to make a caveat. I am going to take of this round, because it was so close and so ridiculous, I'm going to say that J-Ha is going to win this round, but I'm going to like pluck Reagan out of the graveyard and take him into the final four with me. And we're going to do like a hypothetical round with him. Just a hypothetical, just to see if it would make a difference, right? We're going to do that. And you may be saying, Romania Black, that is cheating. And to that I say, I'm going to have my cake and eat it too, bitches. This looked a lot better. Before I started recording, but then I started eating it before recording, and so now it's this lump of icing and blueberry cake. But it looked a lot better about 30 minutes ago. So that's what I'm going to do. So J-Ha officially makes it into the final four against all odds. But Reagan Arataka, he is going to be our honorary final four finalist, our fifth final four finalist that is going to go into the final four kind of as a hypothetical. Because again, I felt really, even with the philanthropy tier votes, I was like, ah! And honestly, I have a question that we'll touch base on in a minute that I had asked the philanthropy tier, but the responses did not include Reagan or J-Ha. So I felt kind of like, dang it, this doesn't help me. So we're going to take both of them. Take them both to church. They're coming to the final four. Next, we have Hua Chong versus Ash Lynx. Same categories. Now, like I said, I not only did a poll on the philanthropy tier for Patreon asking if they thought that Reagan or J-Ha were better choices, because I was so torn between them. But even before that, I put out a post on Patreon asking the philanthropy tier that based on these criteria, I didn't want to make it obvious who was against who. So I just listed the candidates in our Elite Eight. I said, okay, of the criteria, who do you think meets it the best and why? And who meets it the least and why? And so only one person responded, which was kind of sad. But Anime Annie, who's been very vocal on Patreon and Discord, did list some criteria and reasons that I'm going to be quoting throughout this. So thank you, Anime Annie, for doing that. But Hua Chong, as far as being caring and understanding for their partner, you will not find someone who is more caring or understanding of their partner than Hua Chong. I'm only on volume 4 of Heaven Official's Blessing, but he is the most patient, the most understanding, the most caring, and takes his time with everything involving that. Like, he's just like, look, you are my bae. I worship the ground you walk on. You just take your time and do whatever you want. Now, Anime Annie did say that if it wasn't Shilian, Hua Chong probably wouldn't care anything about them. But you know what? This is a husbando poll, so we are inserting ourselves as the character that would be the waifu to their husbando or the husbando to their husbando. So we're going to count ourselves like we're Shilian. So I'm going to say that that's going to work, right? But it is off the scale respectful, as Anime Annie says, always willing to lend him a hand and understands him on a whole other level compared to any others in the series. Now, as far as being willing to help others, Hua Chong is not usually very willing to help others unless it is to benefit the person that he cares about. So there is that thing right there that can be kind of a conflict, is that Hua Chong really does not care about anybody else unless it's their respective partner. And as far as being respectful, it's kind of interesting because based on what I've seen so far in the novels, Hua Chong he's not respectful, outright. He doesn't like just walk up to people and it's like, oh, hello, good sir. But for as threatening of a character as he can be, he does rein himself in and just maintains a certain aura of calm and collected, kind of respect. Like, I'm at a point in a story where he's at a location where he could be totally disrespectful and would have every right to be, but he's not. So that shows me he can be respectful. So it is. So Hua Chong is maybe not the best person to win all of these categories. The thing that benefits Hua Chong a lot is the fact that he's up against Ash Lynx, because I love Ash Lynx, but talking about these categories, as far as caring for their partner and understanding, he does care for AG more than pretty much any other character in the series, with the exception of like maybe Shorter or some of the members of his gang. But at the same time, he didn't take that damn plane ticket. I was like, Ash, if you really cared about AG, you would have taken that plane ticket and gone on the plane to Japan with him, right? Right? That was the whole point, right? So I know you think you were saving him, but we all know, we know. And then as far as helping others, Ash is kind of like Hua Chong in the fact that he's not going to help others unless it's beneficial to him and the people he cares about, kind of like Hua Chong. And the same thing goes for respect. He's like been super disrespectful to Dino and other people, but he's respectful only if it is to benefit the situation that he's involved in or the people that surround him that he cares about. So Ash and Hua Chong are very, very similar, and it's a really tight round between them, except I think Hua Chong excels more in the caring and understanding of their partner more than Ash does. Like, if this were Eiji versus Hua Chong, it would be a different story. And this would be a lot harder, and I probably would have had to poll Patreon. But because it's Ash, I've got to give it to Hua Chong. So Hua Chong is going to advance to our final 4. Now, we have Lan Wangji versus Sawamura Eijun. My sunshine boy versus our stoic romantic lead in Modao Zushi. And I would be lying if I said this wasn't a hard round, because in their respective series, they are both quite caring of the people around them. This is the problem for Sawamura Eijun, and I will speak to the elephant in the room right off the bat. Sawamura is not in and I'm going to use the heaviest air quotes possible, canon couple. Yes, Misawa is considered very canon amongst the fandom, myself included, but the mangaka himself has not outright said, yes, they're dating, much to our chagrin. Lan Wangji and Wei Wuxian are a canon couple and do lots of romantic things throughout the story, and very much so by the end. Like, they are confirmed canon. They're end game. It happens. So that definitely benefits Lan Wangji a lot in this. And I'm going to quote Anime Annie. I have in here C notes for Anime Annie. And I would say, here's their exact quote. Out of the ones, I'd say Lan Wangji meets the criteria best. He was well known to go where the chaos was, and one of the few cultivators within Modao Zushi that truly cared about the common people. He was willing to help them no matter their background or fortune. And I don't know if you can get any more respectful or respected. In regards to with his partner, even when Wei Wuxian was even when Wei Wuxian started cultivating the dark path, Lan Wangji still respected him and cared for him, to the point of defying the rules that have been Lan Wangji's entire life and fighting to do anything and everything to help. And he regretted that choice. So 13 years later, when Wei Wuxian was returned to him, Lan Wangji was all in. And when Wei Wuxian was revealed at the Golden Carp Tower, Lan Wangji chose to stand and stay with Wei Wuxian. So yeah, respectful, willing to help others, and caring for his partner and understanding. Lan Wangji is like, check, check, check. And I would say for Sawamura is super respectful. Very respectful of his peers, of his elders, of authority figures in those series. Like, he is utmost respectful. Like, we're using formal Japanese of all things. So Sawamura checks off that box as well. And then willingness to help others. Sawamura does that in spades in Ace of the Diamond. He helps out Koshu in his first years. Like, he's one of the few second years. I say one of the few because there are other second years that help. But Sawamura goes out of his way to help the second years at the start of Act 2, because he not only knows what it's like to be in their position, but he knows the pride and, enthusiasm and passion you feel when a senpai helps you get better at your craft. So Sawamura, absolutely helping others, absolutely respectful. And I would argue that he does care for his partner. If you're going to ship him and Miyuki together, he cares about him. He cares about Koshu. He cares about Miyuki. Whoever you're shipping with Sawamura in, I would say that he cares about him. The one thing that gets Sawamura is understanding. Because one of the big tropes in Ace of the Diamond is that there's miscommunication between Sawamura and Miyuki. There's a whole big old set of chapters where they don't get it. And unfortunately, the series has reached a stop point for now, where there hasn't been a proper resolution with that. And what separates Sawamura from Lan Wangji is, with Lan Wangji, there has been a resolution and an aftermath and a happily ever after with him and his significant other. So I hate it. I was like, dang it, no. But when I did the math and added all the tallies up, Lan Wangji barely edges it out. So Lan Wangji, I'm sorry, Ace the Diamond. I'm sorry, our Sunshine Boy. You made it to the Elite 8. You made it so far. But Lan Wangji is going to make it into the Final 4. So that leaves Roy Mustang from Full Metal Alchemist and Shi Lien. And Shi Lien from Heaven Official's Blessing as well. And so I do want to reference Anime Annie's comment about these two because she wrote a really nice thing about them, saying, Shilian, I feel, is overly respectful to nearly everyone he meets. His cousin doesn't count. And his willingness to help others has always been there. Just that willingness can leave him blindsided at times, and it can be his own detriment. And as to his understanding of others, some people he has a good grasp on, but other times his upbringing, experiences, and ways of cultivating make him unable to fully understand a person, to the point as the reader that you kind of want to shake him until he realizes the truth. Right? So Shilian, he has aspects of all three of these criteria that he can meet, but then there's sometimes where he overdoes it a little bit, and sometimes where he falls a little short. So then you have Roy Mustang. Roy Mustang, according to Anime Annie, I would not classify as respectful. He has moments that he shows his respect for his people, but you don't really see his attitude with any outsiders. Again, though, if it's in regards to his partner, I'd say he's typically respectful of Hawkeye. He is somewhat caring of others, considering he took in the Elric brothers under his wing and cares for his country enough to sage a coup. But I just don't see it on the same level as Lan Wangji, for example, mainly because there's always something in it for him. Though, through the Elric brothers' investigation, he learns more about the dark side of their country, through the killing certain sins, he's avenging his people who were hurt or killed, caring for country, also makes him the most important figure. I'd also say his willingness to help others only extends to if there's a feasible plan. He's definitely willing to turn a blind eye and play the long game if it's more advantageous. So, you have two characters. You have Roy Mustang, who's kind of just in it for himself or for some kind of agenda. And yeah, he can be respectful, he can help others, and he can care, but there's always an ulterior motive to it. Or you have Shilian, who is respectful to a fault, will help others to the point where it hurts him, and cares for one another unless it just flies over his head. So he's trying. So you have someone who's in it for an ulterior motive versus somebody who's really trying their best. And again, you can say it's apples and oranges in that case, but here's my thing. If I'm looking at a husbando, I would rather look at somebody that's trying their best and doing it for the right reasons than somebody that's doing it for an ulterior motive that's benefiting them and not necessarily their partner. So it's really difficult, and if you argued with me, I would understand, but I want to give it to our cinnamon bun deity who's trying his best and doing it for the right reasons versus someone that's doing it for themselves and an ulterior agenda. So, Shilian, you're going to make it to the final four. Ugh! So our top four husbandos are Jaeha/Reagan, Hua Chong, Lan Wangji, and Shilian. Whew, MXTX writes some damn good husbandos. If you've not read MXTX's work, y'all be missing out. That's all I can say. But now we have the waifus. So as far as our waifus go, we're down to our Elite 8. We have the Windmaster Shi Qingshong versus Nobara. And then we have Riza Hawkeye versus Nina Fortner, Masato versus Yaruichi, and Shilian again versus Rei. So yeah, as far as the Windmaster versus Nobara goes, this one's really hard. They're all really hard at this point. It's just difficult, right? But you have the Windmaster, who does, I would say, as far as caring for their partner and understanding, we could use the Windmaster's partner as the Earthmaster, and then for Nobara, we'll just say Maki. We'll just do that. As far as caring for others, the Windmaster does care a lot for the Earthmaster. When Shilian and the Windmaster find the Earthmaster, they're really concerned about them. They want to make sure everything's all right. They make sure they keep them by their side. As far as others they care about, like Shilian is their BFF, so they make sure that they're comfortable, that they're always being sociable. They're just there for anybody, and they're willing to help you no matter what. And you have to appreciate that about the Windmaster, right? As far as being willing to help others, all the time, giving merits, going on missions, trying to do anything they can to be of assistance. Like the Windmasters come out in spades to help Shilian throughout their journey. And they're not even the romantic partner. They're just doing it because that's their personality. And then as far as being respectful, the Windmaster is in fact respectful. They're one of the most well-respected people in the Heavenly Realm. They're known throughout the entire Heavenly Kingdom as being this really upstanding, dignified Heavenly official. So yeah, the Windmaster checks off all these categories really, really well, especially in terms of being helpful and respectful. Then you have Nobara, who's kind of like a bad girl, right? But I will say this for Nobara. Nobara is respectful of her peers, unless she's, like kind of side-eyeing Gojo, but we don't blame her, right? Or giving help to Yuji and Fushiguro, but we don't blame her there either. But yeah, but she's for the most part respectful. I would say she is willing to help others to a point. There is a big speech Nobara makes in the final episode of season 1 where she says that she only has so much room at her table for so many people. So she's not going to help out everybody, just the people she cares about. And I'd be a hypocrite if I said that wasn't cool, because with Hua Chong, we said it was fine, as long as you were at the table with them. And then you have the idea of if they're caring for their partner and understanding. And again, my biggest detriment with Jujutsu Kaisen is I've only seen season 1. I'm going to see season 2 this summer. So by next year's Waifu and Husbando bracket, I will have seen probably even more characters and have more substance to go off of with the characters I currently know. But for this bracket, Nobara, she cares for Maki, and she like does little side quips and, you know, does little nudges and bumps and stuff and helps out Maki too. But it's just, there's not as many examples with Nobara as there are the Wind Master. And with the Wind Master, it's not just the Earth Master, their significant other. It's with others, with Lon Chanshu, it's with Shi Lien, it's with Banyu, it's with multiple characters the Wind Master has been caring and understanding about. Whereas with Nobara, it's really a smaller handful and to a lesser extent. So I'm hoping we get more in season 2 with Nobara. I really am, because she's one of my favorite characters in that series. But for this round, I've got to give it to the Wind Master. Wind Master's going to advance on to the final 4. And Nobara, girl, cheers. I'm hoping season 2 gives me more content to let you go further in next year's bracket. Now we have Ariza Hawkeye versus Nina Fortner. And obviously, Riza and Nina are both respectful. They are very respectful, especially professionally, especially around their peers. As far as the willingness to help others, Nina absolutely trying to help Asia in the mansion, trying to help Dieter, helping Tenma. She definitely expresses that. Riza has expressed her help throughout multiple characters in Full Metal Alchemist to a great extent, including Winry, Elric Brothers, Roy Mustang, etc. And then as far as caring for their partner and understanding, this is the one that kind of that separates the two of them quite easily. Because Riza, she has experience with Roy, who is an actual partner. Like, whether you view them romantic or not, they are literally partners in the field. And she has shown her care and understanding of them through all different realms of circumstances. Nina, my problem is I'm only at episode 23 of Monster. And so I don't have as much content to go off of with Nina. And I know some people have told me they ship Nina with Tenma. I don't want to know anymore. I don't ship her with him because I've not gotten that much content yet, but I don't want to know yet. No spoilers, please. But we just don't have enough with her in a romantic setting to compete against Riza in that last category. So when they're both willing to help others and they're both respectful, I've got to look at that final criteria to see who meets it best. And it's Riza Hawkeye. So Nina, you gave a really good fight, but Riza Hawkeye is going to go on into the final 4. Next we have Masato versus Yaruichi, our old school girls. I'm so glad we got some old school waifus in this. Neon Genesis is become one of my favorite anime, and Bleach is a classic OG staple. Like it's a shonen that you just gotta watch. You gotta experience Bleach, whether you like it or not. It's not my favorite, but I've admired it and watched it for years and read it for years. It's one of those things you just have to experience Bleach. You have to say that you did it, right? It's one of those things. And so, as far as being respectful, I feel like Masato and Yaruichi kind of go at it very similarly. You have moments where they both go rogue. You have moments where they're both like doing their own thing that's off the record. But for the most part, everyone respects who they are and respects them as people and also in their professions. Like, whether you're Yaruichi, who's the head of her clan, whether you're Masato as a general or a commander, or an admiral in the movies, like, you have to respect them for the positions that they have and the respect that they command. So they both meet that criteria pretty handedly. Willingness to help others, that one is interesting because they both have had situations where they've either worked alone, but also where they have worked as a group. And I'd say both Yaruichi and Masato, they can work as a group and help others, but it very much depends on the circumstance, right? Like, I would say that Masato, when she is working for NERV, meets that criteria of helping others. And Yaruichi, she has helped others before, but she's also worked alone. So there is some give and take with both of them. So I think they both meet that criteria equally, just maybe in different means. And then it comes down to caring for their partner and understanding. And if you're looking at partners that we would use as examples for canoonships, obviously I would say Kaji for Masato and Urahara for Yaruichi. And in Masato's case with Kaji, she shunned Kaji away at times. Like, she shunned him away. She's projected her own insecurities on him. She's, been somewhat supportive at times, but at other times she's not exactly a caring or understanding person. I'd say she's more understanding in a platonic way for like Kaji and Shinji, but romantically she kind of falters a little bit in that category. Whereas with Yaruichi, she does care a lot for Urahara, and she shows it by her support and their banter and their interactions with one another. And she has shown an extreme amount of understanding. Like, Yaruichi is so like quick-witted and wise that she instantly understands the gravity of a situation with Ichigo or the gravity of a situation with Byakuya. She can transform her expressions from comedic to serious faster than she can turn into a cat. So it's just, she's such a great character when it comes to understanding, and you can tell she cares. She's maybe isn't the most like respectful of authority, but she is a caring and willing to help others. Whereas Masato's big shortcoming is sometimes in the caring and understanding department, she can falter a little bit more than Yaruichi. So it was really close. And I almost pulled Patreon, but the example of how Masato goes through a big struggle in her own insecurities in terms of caring for their partner, that's what made me separate her and Yaruichi out. So our 11 seed, knocking out our 1 seed, Yaruichi from Bleach, is going to advance on into the final 4. And then finally we have, I feel bad for Ace of the Diamond, because going up against an MXTX work is really hard, because MXTX is an author who's created these Chinese Donmai, and they're romances. So their romance, their fantasy, their horror, they're a whole mix of genres. Their fantasy action, it's like a genre buffet with an MXTX work. And Shilian versus Ray. Ray is super respectful. And we've talked about Shilian already with these categories. Ray is super respectful, and Ray is very, very willing to help others. Like, she has helped to scout Sawamura and Chris and Miyuki and Kuramochi. She has helped to scout them. She has helped Kuramochi practice and get ready for games. I would say that Ray and Shilian both meet that helping criteria amazingly. And as far as being respectful, both Ray and Shilian are respectful. Shilian to a fault almost, but Ray and them are both very respectful. So then it comes down to the care and understanding of their partners. So, and this is the thing, I want to ship Ray with Kataoka so bad, but if there's one aspect in Ace of the Diamond that Ray does not get the chance to explore, it's any romantic circumstance. Like, Ray gets zero romantic action at all in that series. None whatsoever. And I'm like, TJ, he's right there. Have her date Kataoka. It would be so perfect. But alas, we don't get it. So and Shilian has examples of him and Hwachong, and that was the tiebreaker. I was like, they both want to help others so much, and they're so respectful, but Shilian has multiple examples of caring and understanding romantically as well as platonically, where Ray's doesn't have that waifu moment romantically with anybody in the series. And that's sad. So Shilian is going to advance on to the top, the final 4 of the waifus. But Ray, you are our best manager, and we will cheers you and hope that you are back and can go further next year on the bracket. So, semifinal time. Time for the semifinals. And this one's incredibly difficult. As you would be expecting, because we have 3 new criteria for our final 4. So the final 4 criteria, again, as we went through the criteria on Patreon, these were the ones that were chosen more and more and more. So they were the more popular criteria. I would say the only popular criteria I got out of the way first was bad boy and bad girl, because I was like, this is not for a husbando. This is for a date. So we got that criteria out of the way early, but the rest of these were all very popular. So are they vulnerable and empathetic? Do they have an investment and personal growth? Are they relatable? This was a lot harder than you think, because a lot of these characters, they hit the nail on the coffin, quite literally. So let's start start with Shi Lian versus Lan Wangji because that's the smaller of the group, right? So this one, again, it's really hard. Really, really hard. As far as being relatable, I feel like Shi Lian and Lan Wangji are relatable in different ways. So, for example, Shi Lian is relatable. Shi Lian's relatable in terms of like personal growth. And this will kind of tie into the second point, where Shi Lian was this posh boy who hit a wall, hit rock bottom despite the wealth, and like hit the lowest of lows, and starts to grow and learn from his experience and become a better person over the course of the series. And it's very relatable because I think at some point we've all hit a wall. We've all felt like we were at the end of our rope. And Shi Lian's such a great person to represent that inspiring message of keep moving forward and keep going despite it and just keep thinking positively. Like, he's such a great, relatable person in terms of that as a character. Lan Wangji is like Shi Lian, a posh boy, who is relatable in terms of loving someone that doesn't seem to return that affection and just keeping faith and doing your best to maintain despite when that person, hits their own rough patches. So I think Shi Lian's relatability is better than Lan Wangji's. I think Lan Wangji's is more related to romance than it is personal growth, and you could argue with me on that, and I wouldn't blame you, but I think Shi Lian's relatability is much more, I feel more inspired by Shi Lian in terms of being relatable than Lan Wangji, right? I think it's beautiful the way that Lan Wangji has total faith in Wei Wuxian and believes in him throughout everything. But as far as being relatable, I feel like Shi Lian, there's just something heartwarming about him and wholesome that you just kind of latch onto. Whereas Lan Wangji, you kind of just have to like look at a distance and then slowly move yourself closer to him till you feel like you can reach out and like grab his shoulder or something. And then as far as personal growth and investment, you could definitely say, here's my thing about Lan Wangji and personal growth and investment. I had a speculation about this because I was like, does Lan Wangji grow as an individual, or do they just become more open about how they've been the entire time? I almost think it's the latter. Yes, you could say that Lan Wangji has grown as an individual and matured and kind of, developed his own opinions and changed his mind. But I do think a large part of his growth is just him opening up and being communicative about the things that have been there all along. Like, he loved Wei Wuxian from the beginning. He just didn't want to openly admit it. And so then his growth is him coming to the realization that he can't admit it. Whereas I feel like Shi Lian's growth is he completely transforms. He starts from very posh, goes down to rock bottom, and becomes someone who's humble and doesn't want any luxurious items. Lan Wangji still likes his luxurious items and still wants that nice jade teacup. He doesn't completely change, but I would argue that Shi Lian goes through an insane amount of growth and transformation that I would argue is a little bit more than Lan Wangji's. So then we come down to vulnerable and being empathetic. And I don't know if I've ever met a character that I've just felt harder for than Shi Lian. Like, I do, Lan Wangji I feel for in terms of just sympathizing with the lengths that he would go after he thinks he's lost the person he cares about, and the lengths that he goes to keep their memory alive, and just the lamenting that he does. I cannot tell you how much that is so beautiful in Modao Zushi. It's such a gorgeous storyline, and Lan Wangji's my favorite character in Modao Zushi. He's my favorite, so I relate and understand his struggle, but I've never met a character like Shi Lian who has had just the worst things happen to him, and he somehow finds a way to smile through it all and just washes it. It's like water off a duck's back, and he just moves forward. He's like, it'll be fine. To the point where you just want to shake him and be like, get some help, But it's so relatable, and he's so vulnerable and empathetic, but he grows so much throughout the series, and then he starts to change as a person, and I feel like it benefits Shi Lian that he's the protagonist and we follow him along his journey. I feel like that's beneficial to us as the audience to relate more to him. Lan Wangji is my favorite Modao Zushi character, but the protagonist is Wei Wuxian, and the one who changes more and is more empathetic is Wei Wuxian. So that's really the defining difference between them. And so it's hard, and I was so tempted, but at the end of the day, I've got to follow my heart and the examples before me, and I'm going to pick Shi Lian. So Shilian is going to make it to the finals of the waifu, or the finals of the husbandos. The finals of the husbandos. Ah! So yeah, that leaves our three-way tie between, we have our hypothetical Reagan, we have Jae-ha, who technically won the round, and we have Hwa Chong. I had to do like a flow chart, like a bullet point of how each of them match up with these criteria, because it's a lot closer than you think. A lot closer than you think. So we'll just do Jae-ha versus Hwa Chong first, right? I'm going to go ahead and say that once we got to this category, I was rather intrigued by the fact that we brought Reagan in, because it's interesting, right? So as far as being vulnerable and empathetic, Reagan does have moments where he's vulnerable and empathetic. I'd say in season 2, right around episodes 6 and 7, when we get his backstory, he's very empathetic and very vulnerable. But honestly, Reagan isn't usually vulnerable and empathetic because he hides it all with an immense amount of confidence. But we do get some moments where we peel back the layer and see the human underneath it. So I will say that he's vulnerable and empathetic. The same thing kind of goes with Jae-ha. Jae-ha has moments where he is vulnerable, but I would say Jae-ha is actually the least of all three of these, because we don't really get a lot with his character, and it's just brief moments. But then Jae-ha works through those moments, and we don't see them as often. Hwa Chong, as an adult, he seems on top of things, but from volume 2, the moments of his childhood we see, he is insanely empathetic and vulnerable, and you just kind of want to like root for him and like want the best for him, to the point where he's asking for Shilian's voice just to help him live, right? So it's insanely inspiring, Hwa Chong's story in volume 3, not volume 2. So I would say that of the first category, I would say Hwa Chong is probably the most vulnerable and empathetic. Despite him as a character being so kind of omnipotent now, the childhood we see in volume 3, it makes you really want to root for his character and to push him to do well, right? So I'd say he wins round 1. Then we have investment and personal growth. And I would say Reagan's been kind of a steadfast character. That's kind of Reagan's thing, is that he is kind of an anchor in Mob Psycho. He does grow in season 2, and he does go on a journey where he develops as a person and gets to the point where he doesn't have to depend on Mob, and he kind of grows from there. But overall, he's a pretty steadfast anchor of a character. And then Jae-ha's growth happens basically at the beginning of the arcs with him. In the first volumes he's introduced, that's where his growth and character development mainly takes place. And then he kind of stays a little one note throughout the rest of the manga, but not in a bad way. He just doesn't grow or alter too much more. So he does have character growth and investment. It's just a little bit earlier on in the series than later. And then as far as Hwa Chong goes, I would actually say that Reagan hypothetically would win the second round, but Hwa Chong would be a very close second, because his investment in Shilian is insane. It's just so off the charts. And I would say that you look at him as a child when he's vulnerable and empathetic and see how much he's grown as an adult. No, I take that back. I think he does win round 2, because he does show an insane amount of growth and personal investment from childhood to adulthood in what we've seen so far in the story. So yeah. And then there's relatability. Now, Reagan, I find him relatable. The parts in season 2 and episodes 6 and 7 with his job, I found insanely relatable. I really liked that. But honestly, in terms of the series as a whole, I think Mob is the more relatable one. So Reagan's kind of the anchor for him, so we don't get as much with him. Same with Jae-ha. Jae-ha is probably maybe the least relatable out of all three of these characters. Not to say that he's not relatable at all. He is. But I feel like his relatability is very niche, whereas Reagan and Hwa Chong have a lot more relatability. And with Hwa Chong, it's really if you are someone that loves someone but doesn't know if they love you back, or there's unrequited love, or you just want to dedicate yourself to someone or something, Hwa Chong can be extremely relatable. And when he's a kid and seeing him suffer and just wanting something to live for, that can be relatable to a lot of people. So all three of these characters really can pass on attributes to these categories and criteria and meet them in certain ways. But honestly, Hwa Chong kind of, for me, meets them the most. So yeah, I think either way, whether Reagan would have won or Jae-ha would have won, in the end, I don't think either of them would have beat Hua Chong. So our final two husbandos are Shi Lian and Hua Chong. Imagine that! So then we're down to our final four waifus. And our final four waifus, we have the Windmaster versus Riza Hawkeye. And I would say, as far as being vulnerable and empathetic, Riza and Windmaster don't show a lot of vulnerability, and if they do, they try to hide it. I do think that Riza, even though she tries to hide it, we do see a little bit more vulnerability through her throughout the series of Full Metal Alchemist. I'm only to volume 4 of Heaven Official's Blessing, and we're just now getting into some character development with the Windmaster, but it's not been fully finished yet. Whereas I think Riza has, to her benefit, that we have an entire season, an entire series with her, so we can see her grow from the beginning to the end of the series and see what she learns along the way, like when she discovers things about her country, about her past, about things she's been involved in, and those, that information she learns kind of starts to affect her in the way that she, is in the future. That's a pretty big thing, right? So as far as being, having personal growth and investment, I think Riza, we get more in depth with her character and how she's changed over the course of the series. Whereas the Windmaster, we're just getting into that vulnerability, but we haven't fully explored that personal development and growth yet. And I think both the Windmaster and Riza are relatable in different ways. I think the Windmaster has a lot with their past and kind of their fears that people can relate to. And with Riza, just the mindset that she has and kind of her ambitions and her, the things that make her hesitant, those are things that we can relate to as well. So it was really close between the two of them, but I think we get more content and more examples of the criteria with Riza Hawkeye. So Windmaster, you gave it a hell of a run. But Riza Hawkeye, our last one seed remaining, is going to move on into the waifu final 2. And that leaves Shi Lian versus Yoruichi. We've talked about Shi Lian enough in this category, with these categories. With Yoruichi, I feel like Yoruichi can be very relatable at times as wanting to help others. But in terms of relatability, Yoruichi is someone that we want to be. Yoruichi is a character that we want to become. We want to be as cool as Yoruichi is and be like the mentor figure, but also be like the jester, but also be like the sexy cool girl. Like Yoruichi is like the it person you want to be, but I don't know if I would describe Yoruichi as relatable. Like Yoruichi has some extreme things happen to her that would be kind of niche for just a typical reader to relate to. And with that, we do see character growth and empathetic or vulnerable moments with Yoruichi, but she doesn't have as many as you think. She has moments, but I remember reading Bleach always wanting to see more with Yoruichi and more backstory, like with her and Urahara, like when they met, what it was like why'd she leave her clan, like wanting to see all these different things with her character that we never really got to explore. And so it was kind of like you were left hungry for more information with her because you wanted to relate to her, you wanted to connect, but you could just kind of look at her from afar. Whereas Shi Lian reading, you feel like you're just up close, like you could give him a big hug. So for checking off all the categories and giving some really specific examples, Shi Lian's going to advance to the finals of the Shi Lian advances to the finals of the waifus as well as the husbandos. Y'all were wanting a Reagan sweep, but you didn't think of a scrap collector sweep, did you? No. So, man, that brings us to the finals. The finals of the Husbando and Waifus. And the criteria are aesthetically pleasing, loyalty to friends and partners, showcases devotion and love, and combines a multitude of the other traits. Goo. So, Shi Lian's in both rounds, but we'll do the waifus first. So we have Riza Hawkeye versus Shi Lian. As far as being loyal to their friends and partners, I think Shi Lian and Riza both excel in that category, if anything. Like, I would want Shi Lian and I would want Riza on my team. I mean, Shilian has some really cool weapons, so he'd be great there. And then Risa's got a pretty good eye. So I feel like during the zombie apocalypse, she'd be able to hit some zombies pretty good, and Shilian could use Ruyi to wrap them up. But yeah, they're both loyal to their friends to the point where they would put themselves in danger to rescue them. So there's no question, loyalty to friends and partners, right there. And oddly enough, showcasing devotion and love, yeah, I mean, Risa and Shilian, they're both kind of like, they like somebody, but they don't fully realize it or want to admit it. I mean, we can ship Shilian and Hua Chong all day, and we can ship Riza Hawkeye and Roy Mustang all day. But in the series, there are times where they're both bakas and don't quite get it, right? And so I feel like they both kind of are on equal footing in terms of that. So then it comes back to combining all the multiple traits, like the relatability, like empathy, like being a bad boy and a bad girl, and all of these different things. And it gets really close between the two of them because they excel in so many categories, and they're very similar, oddly enough. It's kind of weird. But here's the thing. When it came down to it for the waifus, I was looking at the examples we have for both characters, and I've talked about them throughout this entire series of videos. But when it comes down to it, we have Riza, who is, a side character in the series, who we see throughout the series, has their own side stories, their own plot lines, but they are still a side character. Shilian is our main character, and Shilian we get the most examples with. We follow them throughout the entire story, and we are able to see all of these layers of a waifu be on display. So, yeah. Our top waifu is Shilian. Against all odds. I was like, okay. So then that leads us to our husbando, of it being Hua Chong versus Shilian. And here's the thing. As far as combining a multitude of traits, like being the bad boy, being vulnerable and empathetic, being fiercely loyal, as far as being loyal to friends and partners, emphasis on the partners with Hua Chong. Hua Chong is just like, friends? What friends? But partners, Shilian, Hua Chong would be the utmost loyal to them, no matter what. And here's the thing. I would say friends of partners, because Shilian has friends and is like, oh, Hua Chong, won't you be loyal to them? And Hua Chong's like, I guess I will. And it's just like, does it kind of against his will, but still manages to be okay. But as far as showing devotion and love, of all of these characters on the bracket that I've read, the top two in terms of showcasing devotion and love are probably Lan Wangji and Hua Chong. They're the top two that would do that, because their love spans centuries and decades. Well, Lan Wangji spans decades, but Hua Chong's love spans centuries. Love and devotion. So it's crazy. And we could have had a Shilian sweep, but you know what? I think I'll settle for a coupling of Hua Chong and Shilian to be our top husbando and our top waifu. That worked out really well, actually. So yes, man, our top Yaoi Super Bowl couple this year was Hua Chong and Shilian, and they're our top husbando and waifu 2023. So this was the year of Heaven Official's Blessing and the year of Hualien. So if you have not read or watched Heaven Official's Blessing, I've hopefully not spoiled too much for you. You should read it. I'm on volume 4 right now on this channel. You've got plenty of time to catch up. It's okay. It is amazing. If you like romance and you're okay with some boys love, and it's got action, fantasy, horror, gore, action, it's like checking off all the boxes. So if you want a good damn story, go read Heaven Official's Blessing. It's amazing. I love it. But yeah, Hua Chong and Shilian are husbando and waifus. So the good news is they are off the table. We now have, I like EQ in the comments said that it was like, first it was like Mortal Kombat where Hak and Yona were watching this battle take place. Then it was like a lip sync for your life. Well, now we have the court of top husbando and waifus has opened, and we now have Hak and Yona and Shilian and Hua Chong. I promise my goal is not to have couples win every year, but it's worked out that way so far. So all I can say is that next year, now that we have the two big power couples off the table, It's going to be a free-for-all. And I'll probably change up some of the things. I am going to go ahead next year, and we are not going to have like a possible double Reagan sweep, Shelian sweep, Bond sweep. There's only going to be, you can either be in Husbandos or Waifus. That's it. And it'll probably be like whichever category got the most votes. Like if Shelian got more votes in the Husbando category than the Waifus, they could only be in Husbandos, not Waifus. So that's what we'll do. We'll just go off of whichever has the most votes and stick to that. But yeah, there's other anime characters that I wanted nominated so bad. Like, where was Vinland Saga characters? I need Thorfinn, Canute, and Thorkel and Askeladd in this poll, please. Where's my Death Note boys at? Like, there's so many series that I'm going to be... Where's Seraph of the End? There's so many series that I have been watching and reading that I would love to see those characters in the nominations for the Husbando and Waifus. So I usually do nominations around November or December. So if you're waiting to become a patron, November and December, for $1, you can do the polls and nomination forms. And you can be part of that. So if you're wanting to mark your calendars, probably around Thanksgiving in the U.S., which is late November, we'll be doing the nomination forms for that. And it'll run towards the beginning of December. So we'll do that then. But I really hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope you guys have enjoyed the Husbando and Waifu brackets. It's been a lot of fun to do these last few weeks. I've really, really enjoyed it. It's been great, and I've really liked talking about these characters. And hopefully your favorites made it to the top. If you're a Hwa-Chong and Shelian fan, hopefully y'all are excited. But if not, do not despair. Next year will be a new year and the chance of a new bracket. So we'll see, right? We'll see. So in any case, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And yeah, I'll be back very soon, y'all, with more reactions. Bye.